Well, hello there once again, and welcome back to Carpo719, the greatest YouTube channel for 76 years now, I think. I think 77 maybe. Anyhow, I have a question to ask today. And the question is, how concerned should we be? You may ask yourself, what do you mean? Concerned about what? I just mean in general. I guess there are many directions I could take this video, but I'll just start off with current events, for example. How much should we pay attention to what goes on in the news? Local, world, obviously you want to know what's happening in your neighborhood, but even then, do you want to know every single theft that happens in your neighborhood? You see how when you look at the world chaos through, say, the lens of the media, you would think that everybody is constantly at war and at odds with each other, and there's predators on every corner. And there's plenty of them out there, but that would be the focus. Whereas a person may say, well, don't worry about what's going on in the world. Just be concerned with your own neighborhood. And as long as you are concerned with the general well-being of your neighbors, that's fine. But the minute you're on nextdoorneighbor.com and you're hearing about everybody who's stealing porch packages and somebody walked into someone's house, I mean, my wife looks at them and she's like, oh, this happened. And then I'm like getting paranoid too. And I start thinking, wait a minute. Well, we've had our car stolen from our driveway straight up a couple times, like just a couple months ago. So, of course we're vigilant and we, want to get the hell away from the city. Not that the problems can be resolved elsewhere, but the point here being, I really yearn for a very simple life. A simple life where I don't really have to hear about what's going on in every little corner of the world. I would love to hear about the positive stories, but we as human beings, we find ourselves gravitating towards stories that are depressing. And the question is, why? Well, it depends on the person. For me, I want to be informed. I guess what inspired me to make this video was I was watching a documentary. It was, I believe, an older documentary about only a few years, about these, basically antibiotic-resistant, bacteria. And they were talking about how it's actually a gene that they're concerned with, not an actual bacteria, but a gene that bacteria can pass on to one another, which makes them all resistant to what the antibiotics we have. And it's kind of a doom and gloom, basically on one side saying, look, we might be thrown back to pre-World War II, before penicillin, when people would die from a cut on your arm, and that's very possible. But number two, how, the industries that make medications and let's just say that their interest doesn't lie in making medicines that save lives. They lie in making medicines that make money. And it just led me on this kind of, if we looked at protecting our health the way we look at protecting our homeland or our country, and put the same amount of money into it, I think that we should be concerned about the invisible enemies. And I'm talking about future pandemics. I'm not too concerned about the current one anymore, but that's just me. But current pandemic aside, we could be facing much worse, believe me. I mean, if we were looking at some major outbreak of something like smallpox, or something that, severely disabled society, that would be horrible. Of course, for example, the plague, the Black Death killed a third of Europe. So it wasn't lockdowns that killed the people or destroyed the businesses. It was literal death of the people who owned the businesses. Chaotic time, horrible time. And those are the things that we might want to be concerned about. But how much does a war in a foreign land concern us? Or a certain politician that's sitting in office? Or a celebrity that said something or did something? The internet, I don't think, has really made us more, I don't think it's necessary. It perhaps has made us a little more neurotic, but I think that neurosis was always there. We just directed it in different ways and had no way to share. We couldn't hear the lunatics before unless they were standing on their soapbox on the corner. And now they're in office constantly. They're running the show. The clowns are running the circus, and nothing's getting done. And I think that a lot of people are upset and concerned because their government has failed them. All across the world, governments have failed people for 1,000 years. For me, I look at it historically. I look back to the past failures of previous superpowers or previous dynasties or empires, like the Ottoman Empire or any other. These were empires that lasted centuries, if not 1,000 years. This is a long time. I mean, these are very significant chunks of history where people dominated, and the concern of the time was always war and domination in the minds of us, because we think about that as basically history as this, look at all this stuff that happened, and there were all these wars and changes of hands, and here we are. But most of the time, a vast majority of the lives of people was relatively peaceful, calm, mundane, and maybe boring. And I feel like we don't have to live that way anymore, so we're choosing not to. So let me give you an example. Our ancestors yearned and dreamed of a time when they could just kick back and relax and not worry about stupid things, like their cart breaking down. But now we have to worry about a car breaking down. But we have usually enough to deal with the problems we have. There's alternatives. There's other ways to do things. There's other jobs. If we lose our hand, we can find a different way to make money. In other words, our world and the way that our society works, a lot of people really take it for granted, and they complain about everything. Oh, look how messed up the system is, and look how messed up these governments are. That's not where I'm coming from. We've done a lot of good. There are a lot of good people out there who have made a lot of positive changes in society and for society. It's up to us to determine who those people are, and that may ebb and flow as we change our minds about things. And as you get older, you will change your minds on certain things. And you'll start to understand concepts that seemed absolutely ridiculous to you as a kid. And they'll start to make sense. With age comes wisdom. You can't rush that. So what I know now, I'll probably laugh at in the future. I try not to be an idealist, but I do have ideas about how living a simple life, for example, moving out to the country and living off the land, not off the land 100%, but rather kind of living on your own with your family could be an amazing experience and much more worthwhile and beneficial than, say, living in the city. I actually, on that note, coincidentally enough, I had a discussion about that very topic with my family yesterday, my brother and my mom, and we were talking about, I was saying how I wanted to move to Kentucky or somewhere like that and buy land. And my brother was saying that he likes to be challenged, by people that are better than him, around him. And I said, I agree. That's why I've got my wife. But all jokes aside, that's not a joke. But as far as, what he meant was that people in the country may not really share the same values as those in the city or the same education. And I said, I think that the smartest people are those who have learned to live within the means of their life, and living on the land, for me, would be the ultimate challenge. Because for me, it's not me against or challenged by other human beings. I've never been interested in competition. I'm not a competitive person. I like to win games. Everybody does. But it's not a big deal to me if I don't. My big competition is to work with nature, not against anything, but rather to work in unison and harmony with my life. I have failed so much when it comes to maybe even running my mouth too much, let's say. Most of my problems come from either not acting enough, say not being motivated enough, but also saying too much. I can respect the soft-spoken person who only speaks when they need to. But ultimately, I like to express myself, and I feel myself getting sucked into the concerns of the world, often when everyone else does. It's like groupthink. Have you heard about this? Have you heard about that? It's like, well, really, I don't want to pay attention to that. I'd rather acknowledge something else. I'd rather spend my time, even if it's thinking about something positive. It's really only been over the last couple of years when I think most of us have been immersed in all this chaos and bullshit, but uh, it's just as easy to just turn it off. It's just as easy to not listen to, the news, to not read the headlines. It's really a waste of time. I've always say, about once a week, maybe twice a week, I scan the headlines on various news sources to say, what are people talking about right now? And it's usually the same garbage. I don't go much further than that. I figure if a story that's important enough comes to me, it'll come to me through the sources of people I know or friends or family. And most of those stories are pretty much useless as well. So many would disagree and say, well, keeping up with what's going on in the courts and in society is important. I'm not interested really in what this current government structure has to offer me. So I really am not interested any longer in participating in it in any form where I'm being that responsible, go-getter type guy, going out getting people to vote, that kind of thing. It's just, I just don't care. I feel like we have been betrayed and failed so many times by our own government that the people are just not going to give a shit much longer. And, when I say that, don't mistake me for saying I don't care about my country, because that's some bullshit people pull. If you don't like where you're at, get out of the country. No, it doesn't work that way. If you don't like the way things are going, you change it, or you accept it. But you don't have to leave the land, because I believe in Americans. I believe in the potential for every person in my country to seek freedom, because that's what we are. Freedom wanting people. That's the idea of it behind America, regardless of how other people like it or don't like it. Some countries may control their people and their population through fear, intimidation, tactics. Sure, China's beating us right now with firepower, with their economy, everything. Who cares? What's more important? A good economy where you're a good boy and you follow what your government tells you to do and you're taken care of? Or a country where you can do what you want and you can take risks and you can fail and you can survive, but it's on your own merit as much as you put forth your own effort. Being part of the system is different. I'm not talking about a meritocracy. I'm saying if you take initiative and you work hard, you can make shit happen. Not everyone can, but that's just how the cookie crumbles. I don't believe in, I'm not a socialist by any means, and I'm definitely not a capitalist. I guess I'm a realist, and I want to see a society where people are able to do what they like, but at the same time, we don't allow governments to favor corporations, and so maybe being concerned about that is important too. Being concerned about things like Citizens United, where corporations can vote as people. And maybe those are the same things that really got me to not give a shit anymore. I'll tell you this. The things that concern me are personal limits on my own freedom when it's not based on sound science that I believe. Now, this is important because this will be the end here, and I want to finalize this. What's happening right now with mandates? We all know what's going on out there with various countries. I'm not going to go into detail because then the algorithm will select this for deletion. But I know a lot of people say it's for the good of humanity. It's for the good of society. We should all just do what we're told and follow the science. And what I believe is that I thought about this a lot over the last year, because I am the kind of person who does follow the rules. I do believe in doing the right thing. I do believe that the group can decide better than the individual in some cases. And I look around and I see things work out. If a crosswalk's in the wrong place, we move it. If a highway's not big enough, we improve it. We're not perfect, but we do a pretty decent job overall as humans to get along and work together. But all of that's based on research and what we see to work. And people have the right to complain when things aren't working or the science isn't sound on something. And that's what's happening right now. And everyone's being divided over an issue of who do you listen to. I think that there's so much concern regarding that and who to listen to and who's telling you the truth, that if I could just leave on one note, it would be we need to remove censorship on everything, allow people to speak their minds on all topics, because the only way to get to the bottom of what the truth is to have honest discourse. Otherwise, you get what they call the Streisand effect. And you may have heard of this. Barbara Streisand, there was a photo done of erosion on the beach. They showed her mansion. She sued to get her picture removed of her house. So it ended up going viral. All the news covered it. And next thing you know, went out to millions of people. The point is, if you try to hide something, people are going to look closer at it. And so the things that often we find ourselves concerned about seem ridiculous at first, but then we find that, I guess what it comes down to is if an idea is complete bullshit, it will be called out as such. And if idea has merit, it will be called out as such. But there's no way and no rhyme or reason to be trying to omit or hide information to protect society right now. It didn't work with even guys like Alex Jones, for example. You can't silence if people want to hear people. And this has really culminated with Neil Young threatening to pull his music from Spotify if they didn't get rid of Joe Rogan. And meanwhile, him just getting the boot. Because Joe Rogan is the money whore. I mean, I'm sorry, Neil Young. I listen to Neil Young. I play Crosby, Stills, and Nash and Young songs all the time on guitar. But, your politics don't matter. The irony here was that he went to Amazon afterwards and said, hey, get my music on Amazon, the company that fucks its workers over. So I'm getting a little off topic here, but hopefully the points I'm making are that the things we're concerned about are ridiculous. We're divided over what we're seeing. And it is a concern because it's causing people to see each other in a completely incorrect light. Nobody even asks for an honest discussion or debate anymore. Fortunately, there are a few channels that do so. And the Rogan thing, to finalize on that. I've watched those episodes, and it's really funny because both of the doctors, they support, I shouldn't even get into that. Let's just say that they were both jabbed, and still people are like, it's all misinformation. And I really doubt they listened to the 5 hours total of the two people they're complaining about. Everyone wants to make an assessment. Everybody's concerned about stupid things. And then Whoopi Goldberg gets canceled from her own show for talking about the Holocaust. I mean, I didn't even want to say that name. It just popped into my head, and I thought it was the funniest thing that I've heard in a long time. This cackling hen up there on The View who's just constantly talking shit about other people and saying how this person should be canceled, talking shit about Rogan, and then she gets canceled because she says something which probably wasn't even intended the way that she said it. And here's the funny thing, that's something I've learned. It doesn't matter what you say anymore. This idea of accusing people of being, whether it's racist, misogynist, a hater, anti-Semitic, that's just using a victim status somehow for other people as your way to accuse other people of being a certain way. And if you don't believe that, then you're not going to be fazed by it. And it's just funny how the media constantly smears it, like the convoy that's going on up in Canada. They're saying, that they're all Nazis and racists. It's really a dumb time to be alive. But, yeah. It's a dumb time to be alive. But that's okay. We're going to do better. We're all going to do better, right? 2022 is going to be an awesome fucking year. We're going to rip through it. We're going to conquer all of our demons. We're going to shake hands. We're going to laugh at the right and the left and remain in the middle, remain neutral. And that's about all I've got. Just had to ramble for a minute. Wishing you all the best. Have a great day. Be well.